A few weeks ago we published a video, Never Date American Women. It was a reaction to another channel's video. Oh my, did we hit a nerve. We were totally taken aback by the strength of feeling by a number of male respondents. They had a lot to say about feminism and its effect on modern day relationships and their decision to stay single.
There was a lot of anger. It's also fair to say that there was a lot of hurt.
To help us identify the male perspective, we are showing excerpts from Why Most of the Men These Days Are Single, Harsh Reality by YouTube channel Sigma Male. See the link to the full video and his channel in the description below.
This video discusses why they feel that feminist ideologies clash with traditional gender roles and leave men uncertain about how to proceed in the dating world of today.
By the way, the graphics are rather brilliant too.
The male ego gets triggered by the slightest of signs of rejection. They are expected to go out and ask women out, but the thing is, acceptance is scarce out there. The average man spends 80 to 90% of his life being rejected by women. With their underdeveloped social skills, single men are severely under-equipped to initiate conversation. The burden of bearing rejection is often pushed onto men, which doesn't help when they're already helpless and can't stand to take any more emotional blows. And every single time a man gets rejected, his soul darkens and it becomes a little more numb. Rejection after rejection, he will eventually lose that part of his soul that is desired for affection and companionship, and it will go numb forever. Once the soul reaches this stage, reigniting that part is nearly impossible. Females are not capable of understanding this because they are the ones rejecting or accepting men. They simply do not have the capacity to understand rejection and what it does to a masculine ego.
I do think if you are a person who is dating, it is really important to be constantly working on your self-esteem throughout that process, even if maybe you don't feel like you need to, because any moment it can really hit you, and it can really hurt. And whilst this video might sound a bit dramatic, I think there are truly men out there who feel this way. So I don't want to make light of that. I think it's just really important that if you are going to put yourself out there, you're also working on your own self-worth so that the rejection doesn't knock you as much as it would. Or if it does knock you, then you have tools in place to help you deal with that situation.
Of course we understand what it's like to be rejected.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we get rejected as well, whether it's on a dating app or whether it's on a date. It's not always the women that are doing the rejecting, and I do understand it does hurt the male ego or the male's feelings, really. If he is rejected time and time again for whatever reason, I can understand that is very hurtful and it does put you off dating. And several men have said in comments on our other video that it's happened to them and now, they just don't feel like they should bother anymore. So that is a worrying fact because so many men are single, and if that is one of the big factors why they're single, they have this fear of rejection, then that is concerning. I think the problem is that a lot of the dating is done online. That's not always the most compassionate of platforms. Maybe, try and get out there and meet people naturally. Again, it is difficult, but just start by striking up a conversation and seeing how it goes without immediately saying, oh, will you go out with me? Just sort of, get a response and sort of think, so I'll just talk a bit longer, or, oh no, I'll just say goodbye and back away.
Yeah, I think as well, this video highlights a lot of single men have poor social skills. And I think what you said there is really important. Like, you don't have to go out there and immediately start asking people on dates. Just talk to people and practice. I'm someone who has terrible social anxiety. I don't usually talk about on this channel because it's hard to talk about, but I dealt with social anxiety and social kind of panic attacks for a long time. And the only way that you get better is through therapy and through gently practicing. Just, strike up conversations with people. Be in areas where you think you might meet like-minded people. Maybe you're into sport. You go to see a sport game and you just make a few throwaway comments to people sitting around you. Chances are you're never going to see them again, and it's a lot easier because you've got a subject. Or maybe you're into art and you can go and sit and look at some art paintings, and maybe someone's looking at the same painting as you and you just make a comment. It's a lot less painful if then that person doesn't want to talk to you.
It may sound unreasonable to some, but reason usually prevails among men. Compared to females, they tend to have a more thoughtful and justifiable approach. They rely on rationality and logic when making decisions or solving problems. A woman's brain is driven by emotions, past experiences, and fears of the future. They tend to be demanding, insecure, and unreasonable all at the same time. Both creatures differ so much in their thinking patterns that conflict is obvious. What differentiates men and women is their approach to handling conflict. Men will often choose solitude and silence in difficult situations because it gives them time to revisit their decisions and choices in depth. This is why men get away from noisy women who start complaining instead of resolving the conflict with good reasoning ability. The love for introspection and search for depth leads men to stay single.
It is a proven misconception that women's and men's brains have different ways of reasoning and critical thinking.
Brain functions and structure can vary amongst individuals, regardless of gender, but these aren't necessarily linked to reasoning abilities.
The perception that a man's brain is more logical and reasonable and critical, as opposed to a woman's being more emotional and intuitive, is something that's been perpetuated by society as stereotypical. And then people think that that actually is the case, but it is not. And of course, things like upbringing, education, life experiences can alter how people think about things.
Definitely. And perhaps this is one important point to make. Maybe not so much nowadays, but I definitely think historically, when little boys have cried, they've been told that they need to stop, they've been told off, maybe they've been laughed at or ridiculed or teased for that behaviour. Whereas when little girls have cried, they've been cuddled and comforted and soothed and told that that's okay and that's acceptable for them. And then of course, as these children grow up, they're going to deal with their emotions in very different ways. Men to avoid potential ridicule and teasing from their peers, and women, have been taught that when they cry, they get comforted and soothed. So I do think in some ways society does set both genders up to fail in that sense. Although, as I say, I do think that is changing.
Yes, I think it is changing. Men are now more in touch with their emotions, and a lot of men are less embarrassed about showing their emotions. Obviously, there's still a long way to go.
I think it's really important that we continue to challenge these stereotypes, to allow each individual to be cherished and valued for their own individual contributions outside of their gender.
Yeah, I just think it's a shame when these things are churned out as fact when they're not.
It only limits men, because it makes them think, oh, well, I'm just not capable of that kind of emotional intelligence.
And then women think, well, I'm not capable of being logical and critical and reasonable.
It only serves to hold us back and not fully express everything that our brains are capable of. And I think for men who are feeling like they find social situations challenging, I don't think this is helpful because it makes them feel like, oh, I can't quite connect emotionally with my peers, and there's no hope for me to ever be able to do that because that's just the way my brain works, which is not true.
All men must be happy to be insulted and belittled 1 week out of every 4 because the hormones in women give them allowance to do so. And above all, a man should be clean of all toxic masculinity. These are just a few of the expectations society has piled up over the centuries for men to fulfill.
So I wanted to talk about the female hormones.
I thought you would.
Yeah. First of all, I think we need to make very clear that men and women both react to their sex hormones. I think it's very obvious that men react to their sex hormones, as it can be obvious that women react to theirs. It's just that men's tend to fluctuate many times throughout the day in response to all kinds of different things, whereas women's will go on a more steady cycle typically. And it doesn't mean that one is superior or inferior to the other, it's just the way that those bodies work. Of course, it is very wrong if a woman is using her time of the month as an excuse to verbally abuse a man or physically abuse a man, perhaps, or anyone for that matter. But if she's doing that, I think that's a sign of a deeper issue with her personality, not something that's anything at all to do with it being her time of the month. If a woman gets a little grumpy because it is her time of the month, then she's perfectly entitled to do that. It's okay, she's not meant to be this happy, wonderful, frilly thing all of the time. She's a human and she's got emotions, as do men, that she is responding and reacting to. Those things are normal and fine. And I can hear the comments now coming in. Oh, was she on her time of the month when she was filming this video, And I think it's such a, when you're a young girl and you're just starting this and you're entering this big scary world of people kind of using it to tease you or belittle you or to exclude you or to mock you, it's such a scary thing, that you don't entirely understand because no one really explains it very well to you. And I just find this very inappropriate, this comment, to be honest.
Men have had enough of modern feminist women's terrible views. They've had enough of having to jump through 100 burning hoops and pass an unlimited number of stupid tests just to attract a woman's attention. Feminism makes the mind of women that they deserve the best of the best and should accept no less for a husband. This ideology wants women to be empowered to unreasonable extents. Feminism tells women submission is a bad word and that they should never submit to a husband.
Submit.
Submit is a strong word.
Well, I think it's an interesting choice of word, isn't it? Because it's often used when one civilization is either invaded by another civilization and they have to submit to the rule of that civilization, or maybe in the sense of war. I mean, it's such an aggressive word, isn't it?
Very.
And I don't think it should necessarily be used in the context of a relationship. I think a better word would be compromise. If the woman is constantly like, what I say goes, what I say goes, what I say goes, that's not good either. I think compromise is better. Like, you have to have some give and take. And it's a much gentler way of thinking about working out disagreements. So yeah, I don't know if I like that word.
I don't like that word at all, not submit. You know, it definitely shows a hierarchy.
The need arises. It is time to rewrite the script. As a man, you need to prioritize your sanity, passion, and well-being over being the puppet of society. Stay clear of anyone who wants to control you. Make connections where your individuality is valued. Step away from the roles that society shackles you with and redefine what it means to be a man in charge of his own damn destiny. It's time to own your story unapologetically and build connections that thrive on mutual respect and authenticity.
I actually think that's wonderful advice at the end.
Everyone should take care of their mental health.
Yes.
It's so important. And nobody should control another person. That's absolutely right. That's all we're saying as women. What he said in the end does make a lot of sense, but I'm not sure about the journey there to get to that summary. Obviously, there are a lot of men who are feeling like this.
Definitely.
And, you know, they have got reasons to feel like this. But on the other hand, we shouldn't really feed all this negativity out to them, especially facts that are not true. A lot of it seems to be anti-women, definitely anti-feminist women, but it seems to tar everybody with the same brush, and it has a very sort of superior male looking down on the female type feel to it. As a woman, this is how I perceive it. We're not putting down those feelings of men who are suffering from rejection after rejection. You know, hearts go out to you. We just take issue with some of the things that are said in this video against women in general that we find insulting and hurtful ourselves. So we're just putting across our point of view, and obviously you can have a different point of view to us. That's fine, and please comment respectfully and we will reply. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe to us on YouTube.